Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dr. Ali Sajid. We have started a series of talks in which we call people across the globe, from Pakistan, from Spain, from China, from USA, Canada, and so forth. The main purpose of our discussion is to spread hope, to generate hope, to inculcate hope, and to produce hope amongst the people who are relatively disappointed because of some reason and who are relatively less hopeful. So we wanted to generate positivity. We wanted to give some tonic and energy to the people through the discussion and through the discussion, especially to the discussion from the successful self-made people. Today, we are lucky to have with us a famous professor of George Washington University, ex-professor of George Washington University, a very established and distinguished and accomplished, what you call a professional of Washington, D.C. belt, and my ex-professor who taught me in 1990, around 40 years ago, when I was doing my PhD from the George Washington University. I am lucky to have Professor Dr. Robert Romano with me. Sir, welcome to our series of discussion. We called it Hope for Life. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr.
I hope you are doing well.
Doing well, thank you. Yes, sir.
And how is life in the corona in Washington, D.C. and Maryland belt?
It is fine. People seem to be following the CDC orders to stay home, wear mask, self-distancing, and that seems to be working. The numbers are dropping in Maryland, and I'm glad to see that.
So what is the status of corona at the moment in USA? It is under control, or it is going beyond the control?
I think there was a lot of control until recently. We've started having a lot of gatherings and get-togethers for protesting for Mr. Floyd, who was killed in Minneapolis. And that has brought in a lot of emotion, a lot of people wanting to go forward and express their rights to protest peacefully, hopefully. And that has brought people closer together, perhaps less mask, less distancing from each other. And therefore, some of the numbers have skyrocketed or gone higher than they were before that event. But it appears to, with more testing, hopefully the numbers are also have been going up. But I think these groupings have caused a little bit more numbers to go up. And I only hope and pray that they go down, and we will start going into different phases. Here we sort of have a 3-phase program. And where I live in Rockville, Maryland, we're still in phase 1 in the county of Montgomery County, because this county had a lot of infections. And that simply means that you can go to a restaurant and eat outside and do your walks and things like that. But no inside eating, no going to get your hair cut. I still need to go get my hair cut, as a matter of fact. I haven't had a chance.
They're trying to avoid the salons as well.
That's right. All of that is closed. Phase 2, those will open to about 50%, and indoor eating at the restaurants will open at 50%. Montgomery County, Rockville here may open up the end of this week or early next week to do that. Some other counties in Maryland have opened up already, and Washington, D.C. also is pretty much closed.
Okay. I have observed you when you were teaching in our university in early 90s. I found you very enthusiastic, very full of dynamism and spark, and willing to help the people, and very considerate. And that is the positive trait of your personality. This is not with you, but I have found almost all of the US professors, they are very caring, loving, and they are concerned about their students, their future, and they take them as their family, guide them, mentor them, coach them. This is a very positive aspect of US universities. I hardly found this aspect in other part of the globe, especially in the South Asian culture. This phenomena is relatively missing. So what is the reason that American professors are very caring and loving towards their student, although they at times are very strict in terms of academic delivery, and they don't compromise the basic rules and ethics, yet otherwise they are very friendly? this is unique American culture? How do you rate this, and how do you think this?
Uh, I can only give you my own personal experience that I have for answering that question. And I've always tried to give students that have applied to wherever I've worked in academia an opportunity to come and do well. And if they haven't done well, I've tried to, quite frankly, mentor them, talk to them. Uh, Several of my professor professor friends uh, have had difficulty in getting students or wanting to get students from other countries because the English language and having to write a dissertation for a doctorate in English and then have to edit it. Well, I edited all my students. I would hotbox all my students. I really cared for my students just as the professors that I had cared for me. And I think I just passed it on. I'd received very good professors myself at the schools that I'd gone to, and then I like to pass that on. I was treated well, and they treated me well. Uh, I can tell you very briefly, if you want me to, about my education, where I've gone to school and things
Yeah,
that
from
I've
your,
done
your
there.
early childhood.
Okay. I was born in Texas and raised by my grandmother, who was a very poor lady. My parents were even more poor, so my grandmother raised me. So she really was like my mother, if you would think what a mother would do. And she was very encouraging. I went to school and I dedicated all my activities to school. I knew that with a good education and with good grades, I could advance and get out of the poorness that we were in and help her. My objective was to help my grandmother who had helped me. And I
Okay.
wanted to do that. And I knew education would help me do that. So I focused a lot of all of my time on that. I mean, I love to play tennis. I was a good tennis player, but I wasn't number one on the ladder in high school. And so I knew I was never going to get a scholarship for tennis. But I did think if I had a high enough grades, I would get it for academics, which I did. I received all of the education that I've received. I never paid a penny because I didn't have a penny to pay. I got it all through scholarships too. I started at the community college in Corpus Christi, which is a 2-year school, and then went to Texas after that to get my degree in chemistry and biology. And after that, one of the professors suggested I go north and consider applying to the University of Michigan, which I did. And the University of Michigan accepted me, and I got a master's degree there in biological sciences. And then
Biological
after,
science.
yes, and then after that, I started studying engineering as well because I liked water pollution, environmental engineering, and I liked the aspect of health. So then I got a second scholarship at Michigan to get a master's degree in public health. So I have a
Public health.
master's degree in public health. We studied epidemiology, we studied pandemics, we studied water quality, all of those things, biostatistics, and I got that degree. And then after that, I applied for the doctorate at Purdue University, where I was accepted with a full scholarship and finished my doctorate at Purdue in 1976. And since
It was in
then,
the environmental engineering or environmental sciences?
it was environmental science and engineering. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I had the chemistry background, I had the biology background, and I had the water quality public health background, which all that helped me. And I did a lot of work in that area, quite frankly, professionally. But after graduation, I started working for the U.S. government with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission as an environmental engineer, and I was there for 3 or 4 years until I left, and then I went to work with the Chemical Manufacturers Association for about 20 years.
This is in
And
Washington, D.C.
in Washington, D.C., yes, sir. And then after that, I joined the World Health Organization. I
WHO.
served WHO, that's right. And that was in the US, they have PAHO, the Pan American Health Organization, which is a branch of the World Health Organization for the continents of North and South America. And so I worked with them for about 3 or 4 years. After that, I then moved on to the Gillette Company in Boston and worked for them, also doing a lot of environmental work, a lot of sort of public health type work. And along the way, for the last 40 years, I always would teach. I would teach either part-time in the evenings, or I would teach several times in between positions. I would teach full-time. So I really enjoyed my teaching, and I always loved my students. I loved my foreign students because they brought to me a different perspective. And a lot of my colleagues did not want to work too much with foreign students because of the language issue, and they'd have to edit and et cetera, et cetera. And I like that. I mean, our job as professors are to edit a dissertation for a doctorate, edit a thesis for a master's degree. And that's part of your job. You set it up. What they do is really reflecting your own research, your own interests. So you're representing them as well. So you want them to look well, and making their documents read well and be clear was always one of my jobs. And
I
I took
remember
that to heart.
I remember in my PhD dissertation, I have given you, and you have studied in your vacations of Christmas holidays. And you went extra mile to help me, guide me, and support me. And that
Yeah.
was the reason I was able to finish in 1995, because I was in the army at that time. So I have limitation to report back to Pakistan in time.
Yeah.
So because of
Yeah.
the cooperation of my professors, I was able to reach on time back to Pakistan. That was, very positive and kind gestures showed by the
Sure.
American professors at that time. I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have had two other students other than you that were from Pakistan that got their doctorate under my leadership and supervision, and they were fantastic students. I'm probably one of the professors that have had the most foreign students from either the Southeast or the Arabic countries, even South America. I've had several, and it was just a gift that I learned from them, quite frankly, and then I helped them get through the system here, because the educational system here can be difficult, and if you're not familiar with it, you need to know and be helped through it, and that's what I would do.
So, from your discussion, I conclude that you're a purely self made person who has extra zeal and energy and desire and extra motivation to rise in life. And without any support from the parents and family, apparently, you told me that they are not very rich, so they may not be able to afford you. So, you are a
Right.
self made person, and you rose to this highest position of professor and senior position in WHO because of your own efforts, commitment, and dedication. And that is a very positive point we can deduce from your life. So, any part of your life you found some real problem which you could not otherwise handle easily, which caused a lot of trouble to you. You found some hurdle, most difficult part of your life. Can you throw some light on that?
Sure. Yeah, I lived in South Texas, and then when I went to the University of Michigan, I had to drive all the way up, which is over 2,000 miles, and go to an environment that I didn't know a single person. I didn't know anyone. And growing up around some of my relatives, I was more familiar with that. That was a little bit of a challenge, but I was very lucky enough to find a posting that they were looking for a roommate, and I applied. And to this day, the roommates I had at Michigan are still my closest friends today. One's a lawyer in Chicago. The other gentleman, Dave, just passed away this January, but he was a friend for life. And those people really helped me. They sort of became my friends, and we had a very good time. They were in different majors, different fields, but we became family. And still to this day, I don't have a lot of friends, but the friends that I do have, I've had for over 30, 40, 50 years. And students like yourself and other students I communicate with that I've had 30, 40 years ago, and they've become very successful. And I'm very happy that I still communicate with them.
So, can you throw some light on the US education system, which is very unique at the higher education level, but maybe there are some questions about the undergrad program. Can you draw some comparison of postgraduate program, your graduate program versus undergraduate program of USA, and you
Sure,
find some difficulty in terms of quality and standards both?
sure. I would say that the undergraduate program, A student should start an undergraduate program only when he or she are ready. And many times right out of high school, like in this country here, that a person graduates 12 years of high school about the age of 18, and then they're ready, they want to go and they're ready to go to college and or university, and they're really not ready mature wise, or they don't know what professions they want to do. And for me, I would rather see a person work part-time for a couple of years, maybe earn some money at a job that is more menial, a job that doesn't take a lot of work. And then they're going to say, wow, I don't want to do this job all my life. I want to go to school and learn something, to be a nurse, to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be a scientist, a teacher, something. And I think parents can push students, but I think if more a parent pushes, more a student rebels. So it's so much better that a student learn that for themselves. Uh, and I personally think that the undergraduate system here is set up that you come in, and if you do well, fine. If you don't, you've got to go to a university that will help you and that has a lot of counseling, a lot of tutoring, a lot of advice for the student. But the student has to be ready, a little bit mature enough to be ready to go and know what they want and be somewhat self-driven and self-motivated, because not too many people are going to motivate you in life. Your parents, perhaps your grandparents, but you have to do it yourself too. And I think a person may be ready to do that when they know what they want out of life, what career they want. I've been teaching a lot at the community college here, which is a 2-year school, and the average age, you may be shocked to hear, at that community college is about 27 years old. The
Okay.
students are not 18, 27. And I asked, why is that at 27? Well, I've asked many of them, and they've indicated that they went out and worked, some went to the military, some did other things, and then they realized that they did not like working with their hands so much. It was too hard. They wanted to go work more with their brain and add to society in some other way. So then they were ready to go back to school, and they did very well in school. Before, they didn't do well because they weren't motivated, and something pushed them to do that. It either knowing that if they stay doing hard work as a server or a chef or cleaning rooms or something like that in a hotel, that's hard work. And so then they prefer having a professional position, so they had to study for that, and they made that decision at 27, 28 years old. And many of them also were in the wrong position, and then as time changes and opportunities change, they were sort of retraining as well, which is a good place to go. But I do want to add too that I feel the academic arena is a very fantastic place for many students that want to go that way. But also, there's a lot of trade schools. We have a need for carpenters, mechanics, masons. Those people that work with their hands, but work with a little bit higher level. And heating and air conditioning experts. And that's a profession that's very, to me, honorable and very good as well. So not everyone has to go to college. Is
Excuse
the way I feel, especially if you don't want to go and you're being pushed to go by parents or somebody. Uh,
So you
that's
mentioned time and again word self-motivation.
Yeah,
And I see at the age of 75, you are still young, working like a teenager, teaching couple of places, doing consultancy, training, and all kind of stuff. And so how do you motivate yourself? In our societies, people at this age are not so committed or motivated because of maybe external environment. But what is the reason you are so motivated since last 20, 30 years I've observing you?
yeah. Well, I guess it's if you feel healthy and you're living a good, clean lifestyle, I think you should uh, do fine. And I felt fairly healthy. I've had some serious health issues in my life, but I've been blessed to have good physicians that help me. And I've always been very positive with life. I've never been negative. I've never let a mistake, lower my expectations. I've made mistakes in life, like I think we all have, but there are things in the past, and I think I've learned from those mistakes and then moved to the future and look only to the future. I don't look to the past. You know, it's
Great.
in the past, it's water under the bridge. You can't do anything about it. You can learn from it and don't do it again, you know. But there's a sort of something that I've always I felt that surviving or doing well in life can be somewhat summarized in an acronym, which is TIME, TIME, just the word time. And each letter stands for something. Like T is thankful. You should be very thankful for what you have. It may be very little, it may be a lot, but be
Great.
thankful. And I is for inspiration. You should always be inspired by people to do more, to help. You know, that's I. M is meditation. There should be a time that you sit with yourself, you meditate. This could be a group religion, it could be an individual meditation, and see where you are, where you're going, what you want to do. And E is exercise. To keep our brain healthy, we have to exercise. You can walk, you can bicycle, you don't have to go to an expensive gym. Just exercise your body and your brain. And I think that word time is very important.
So, do you still go to the gym at this part of life?
Yes, I do. And I also walk every day. I work, I walk 35, 45 minutes every day in the neighborhood here just to keep everything moving and all the muscles going. And to also look at the trees and look at nature, you know, those kind of things while I'm walking. But I do enjoy that. So I think exercise is very important.
Hmm. So, are you a risk taker? Do you believe on taking risk,
I
calculated
think
risk, and
I think you can't advance unless you take a risk, but hopefully it's a calculated risk that will not come back to bite you or hurt you. But I think in life, like when I went to Michigan all by myself, driving my little car, that was a big risk for me, I thought at the time, because I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have a place to stay. I was going to have to rent something. But it all turned out very well with excellent roommates that we're still friends to this day. But I think life is full of risk. There are probably some risk that when you're ready and you think it's going to benefit you, you should take advantage of. Others, I think you probably should stay away from. I'm very careful with taking, you know, very risk
Ali
that could
Abed?
cause a huge problem. So I think risk taking, we all take those. Some people take larger risks than others, but I've always been sort of conservative about that and not gone out too much on the limb. I'm very careful and I make sure that they're going to be beneficial.
Can we take half a minute break? I can plug the wire. Can you take 30 seconds break?
Sure, absolutely. Take your time.
I have last two questions from you, maybe two or three questions.
Okay,
Uh,
go ahead.
yeah. How do you see the life in USA in the post-corona era or post-corona arena?
Uh, I track the coronavirus and all the activities that are going on because it affects all of our lives. And this is something that's bringing us together, not only as a country, but as a world, because it's all over the world. Uh, I think things are going to change a little bit. Life will be different than it used to be uh, until excuse me, a injection, a vaccine is discovered, or some treatment for coronavirus is developed, it's going to be a scary situation, because I think the virus is so new, and it can do all kinds of modifications to itself and change a bit, and it can affect people differently. But I think post corona, we're going to see it like, the world has had epidemics throughout the history of the earth. The very last one was the Spanish flu in the turn of the century in the early 1900s. That's over 118, 20 years ago. And here is another one that has shown up, and life has continued. And I think it will continue again. The only thing we have to be careful, and I think listen to the medical and health professionals, of how to take care of ourselves and our family, so we can get to that point that it may be similar to what it used to be. But it's going to take time for that to happen. It's not going to be done overnight. It may take 2 years, 3 years for things to get back to how they used to be before, the fall of 2019.
Okay, okay. So, how do you see the present law and order situation in USA, especially in Washington D.C. and New York and Atlanta and Minneapolis and Los Angeles? They're full of riots, people on the streets. Do you
Right.
think it will come it will come down very soon in the near future?
The riots, in this country, we have the Constitution, and hopefully it's followed by everyone. And Amendment 1 to the Constitution is you're allowed to protest peacefully. I think any peaceful protest is very well accepted by all of the American people. If it gets out of hand, I think that's when it's totally inappropriate, and should not, that you cannot condone
Yes.
violent protesting. But peaceful protesting is our right, and I think the way I've seen the tape of Mr. Floyd and how he was uh, killed, uh, to me, brought a lot of hurt and upset and very saddened for his family and for him. That should never have happened. There was just too much brutal force by that particular police officer. And you see it in this country all the time. Uh, and I think now is the time that people are protesting, of both Black people and white people together. And I'm very supportive of their cause. And I hope and pray that this will be resolved. I think it will take time. And a lot of it deals, I think, with the issue of voting, elections, who our leaders are, and getting people in there that understand the discrimination against Black and brown people. And that will help make changes. But I think it's so strong this time that I really think that something positive will happen, and I certainly hope so. You
Yes,
you
we are
should not.
hopeful. We are
I'm very hopeful for it.
You worked in the WHO, and presently, at the moment, we find a lot of observations, less positive comments, especially from the US president on the WHO role in the existing pandemic of corona. So, how do you comment and rate those views expressed by the president of USA on
Well,
WHO?
I'm not 100% supportive of the president's view, especially on this particular point. I worked with the World Health Organization, and the World Health Organization, it was a fantastic organization when it comes to writing guidelines and standards, but really guidelines for countries. In this country, we have the US EPA, which writes its own guidelines and standards for operation of industry, discharges into the air, into the water, etc. But other countries that are not as fortunate of having the resources that this country has do not have an EPA. They cannot sit there and do the research on different chemicals and on different effects to fish and people. So they rely heavily on the guidelines of the WHO. and then they accept the WHO guidelines as a standard for let's say a developing country, because they don't have the resources to have their own EPA, as it were. And I really respect that. I learned that when I worked with the WHO. I helped, as a matter of fact, write the standards for forest fires, just general fires around the world that are just burned, occasionally burned by accident, burned by lightning, which nature does. But the control of that is very important because it adds to the atmosphere, which then affects ozone and global climate and things like that. And I was very instrumental in getting those standards written, or those guidelines. I should always use the word guidelines because the WHO writes guidelines. A country can accept that as their own standard. And many, that's all they have. They have nothing else to rely on. So I think it's a mistake that we are supposed to get out of the WHO. I think it's a good organization. And as a country that pays a lot of its dues, I think we get our money back, because this is a world issue. It's not just an issue for this country. We're all
I
connected. We're all
understand.
breathing the same air. And I think we need to be members of WHO and pay our dues.
I always found you, Dr. Romano, since last 30, 40 years, you're always with smiling attitude, caring attitude, positive attitude, and helping attitude, and loving attitude. And you always spread hope. And I learned these things from, especially from you, how to facilitate, how to mentor, how to help. And tell me, what is the underlying reason of this positive trait in your personality? Maybe you're self-made or you have found early in the early part of your life some miseries or hardship.
I think so. I know I shocked even my cardiologist, because I've had open heart surgery twice. And he said I was very sick. And then I ended up with sepsis, which all my body was full of infections. And he said he had 3 or 4 other people in the hospital at the same time, and I was the one that was the most sick, but the only one that survived. And he said, "How did you survive?" And I said, "I don't know." And so I said, I didn't think about it. I was very positive. I had friends and some relatives that would come and visit me, and I think I've always been persistent in life, and just always trying to do good. the
So no act of kindness is ever wasted.
No, and I know when you asked me to participate here, I looked up several words, like hope for life was the subject, and of course I think hope was an interesting word. I wanted to see what the Webster Dictionary said, and it said to cherish, okay, or the desire with expectation for it to be fulfilled. Hope. So we all have hope.
Selflessness is the core component of any positive person who wanted to or wishes to add value, especially to the less marginalized people on the world. And this component is very much common in South Asian culture, also in the Far Eastern culture, and also to the practicing Catholics in USA and Christianity even, and of course in the Judaism and Islam. All those divine religions, they have the common thing. First of all is tolerance. Second is to facilitate the person who is marginalized, and third is act selflessly. All these three components and features and traits, when they combined one in one's personality, he is likely to rise in the world because he's close to the god in that sense. Do you agree with this?
Yes, sir. I do. Yeah, I do. And I think it's important to never forget your roots, where you came from. And if you succeed in life, pay back,
Pay
help
back to the
others.
society.
Yeah.
The concept of paying back is very much dominant and prevalent in the civilized society, in the Far Eastern countries, again in the South Asian countries, where mysticism and Sufism is prevalent. And even I have seen the countries where people don't believe on the religious norms, who are atheists, they also believe on the same things. That is again a very common feature, prevalent feature. Last thing you wanted to say, last comment you want to say to the people of Pakistan and youth of Pakistan, any message you wanted to give before we say goodbye? Any last message to the Pakistani nation?
Uh, I would just like to say that we are all on one globe, on one earth, and we all have to, I think, work together and help each other. Whatever can be done in Pakistan can help this country, or vice versa. I've always been one that likes to share and share whatever I have. I would help whoever I could when I see someone that needs help. But I think we live in one world. We need to protect that world, this earth, and we need to protect the people on the earth. The people are what make the earth go around, and we need to be very aware of that and help one another. And however we could do it, just simply by having a chat like this, or helping someone, teaching them in one of my classrooms, or talking to someone personally, whatever works, but I think we just have to sort of work a little bit together.
So you still work on the community issues? I remember you were very active in the community work when you were
Yes,
teaching the George Washington University. Are you still? What kind
yes,
of
sir.
community work you do?
Yeah, I like to do that. Yes, I have done that a lot. Being a electoral judge in the precinct that where I live, I like to do that to help the people once they get there, how to go through the system of voting in this country, through the electoral voting, and I still like to help people. I'll go out and do things, at the food bank. I'll do things like that.
Great, great. And I remember your wife was working as a nurse in some of the hospital. Is she
Yes,
retired now?
yes, she's retired.
Great, great. So we are looking forward to your visit to Pakistan when this corona issue is finished. And we are eagerly looking forward to your visit. We would more than happy to welcome you in Lahore, Islamabad, and Karachi, and the northern areas, which are the more beautiful and more having more scenic beauty than the Switzerland. Thank you very
I've
much,
never
and God
been there.
bless you.
Thank
Thank you very
you. Bye
much.
bye.
Uh,
Take care.
we are
Bye
looking
bye.
forward. God bless.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.